Hello folks, Scott here with a quick process video for you. I made this card with the 10 card 1 kit video featuring the My Monthly Hero December 19 kit, and a lot of people asked me to show how I did this galaxy background. I have to attribute this all to Brusho crystal powders. Of course, I start with some watercolor paper. This is B Paper Company 140 pound cold press watercolor paper. This is a 6x9 panel. Of course, I just take some clean water and a brush, and I am covering up half of this panel with some water. Now, I'm not soaking it heavily, but I am covering the whole panel with water, a nice layer of water that will give the Brusho pigment powders something to spread into. Love this black Brusho pigment powder. I have a push pin pushed in the top that allows me to dispense it very, very sparingly. Look at that powder go. I'm just sprinkling the powder from the little hole in the lid onto the wet watercolor paper. You can see that that black pigment actually includes a lot of different colors. You can see specific oranges, you can see specific blues, you can see some light pinks there. The big secret to working with this black Brusho powder is, I think, don't overwork it. Everything will go black. Of course, if you add some more water, which I do here using my little mini mister, it will cause those crystals to dissolve a little bit more, blend a little bit more together, which will of course give you a little bit more of the black color and a little bit less of the blues, oranges, and pinks. So I go around the card, add some more water, just using my mini mister, a spray here and there, and then of course you can go back in and add even more Brusho powder. So I grab that Brusho powder, and again I'm sprinkling it on this cardstock. Everything is still quite wet. I'm not moving it around. I actually think it's fascinating to just watch those pigment crystals just melt and spread around. I'm trying to get a little bit more black going here in some of the ultra bright white spaces. Now, I do want to leave some white spaces, but I do also want enough black so that it registers as some kind of a galaxy background here. I think that's about it. I'm not going to add any more Brusho powder. I'm pretty happy there. Of course, the colors will continue to melt and dissolve and commingle as this dries. I just take a quick check to make sure that I have enough area covered to cut it out with my Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. And again, the big secret is to not overwork this and leave plenty of these bright areas. I don't necessarily want white, but I want these bright areas like that and that and that. Enough bright areas there that it will add some dimension and depth to your galaxy. So I just pick up a little extra water on the side of this with my paintbrush, and I am going to leave this to dry. I'll just let this air dry. Of course, watercolors will dry back about 30%, so this will go lighter, and there it is, all dry. I think that looks really good right there. It's a little bit more black than what we last saw on the wet panel. But I do take my stitched rectangle die, I cut that panel out. As soon as I get rid of that extra white space, this looks really good. Now, I don't really want any white on this panel. I want the white to be confined to the stars. So I reach for my Hero Arts reactive inks. I use the taffy and the splash and the creamsicle, and I'm going in and doing some ink blending in the brighter parts of this background, the places where there was still some white showing through, and I'm adding some color to those with these 3 inks. I'm just using a plain old mini ink applicator and mini foam pads with that. I love doing ink blending on the glass media mat. The ink actually stays kind of wet on the mat, and you can kind of pick it up and move it in. I take that creamsicle to some of the white edges. I'm going to take that splash to some of the edges as well. I really like using these reactive inks instead of the Distress Oxide inks because I think they work with the black Brusho a little bit better than the Distress Oxides. The Distress Oxides sometimes want to cover over the black, but I think that the Hero Arts reactive inks works very well with the black and doesn't really change the color of the black Brusho, and it really kind of confines its use to the brighter parts where you can actually see that. That's pretty good. I hardly see any white areas. Of course, I reach for my Distress Ink black soot pad now, and we are going to go around this whole panel and darken the edges of the whole panel. I think that adds a lot of focus to the card. It really pulls your attention to the center of your galaxy here. Again, just going along the edges, I am not going for a perfectly flat black edge all the way around. There will be some variation, but I do think it adds a lot of finish to a card when all of the edges are a little bit darker, especially on a galaxy like this. Let's pull our focus to the inside where it makes a little bit more sense. That's a little better place for that ink cube, don't you think? I'm just going around this whole panel, adding that black soot ink. I want to keep that blue on the corner there, but I do want the edges to go darker. So there you see, it goes right over that and still keeps that blue prominent in that corner over there. That's pretty good. I think I will go around this whole panel one more time just to give it a one more good go over and to add just a little bit more blackness to the edges of this panel. I think that is going to wrap up my ink blending on this card, and now we can move to putting stars in our galaxy. Now I do grab my gouache permanent white paint, just put a little blob on a stamp block and thin that out with some water. Just plain water, permanent white gouache, very little translucency in a gouache, so you get nice bright white stars. And I just flick off the side of the stamp block to give me my stars. Now I probably should have thinned this paint down a little bit more. I probably should have been a little less aggressive with my flicking, but I'm pretty happy with those stars. A little aggressive there, Scott. I am not happy with that blob down in the bottom. So because it's watercolor on top of an already dried watercolor background, the Brushos are watercolor, you can do a pretty good job of lifting a lot of that white off of this panel. I'm just taking clean color to the part I want to get rid of and using a paper towel to dab that up. A little more water on top, a little more paper towel to dab it up, a little more clean water on top, and a little paper towel to dab it up. That's pretty good for now. Let's move on. For the first time, I used the Spectrum Noir Sparkle Pen. This is the clear overlay pen to add glitter to this card, but instead of drawing it on, I flicked it on using my stamp block. I thought I'd give this a try and see how it worked, and I absolutely love this. Look at the sparkle, look at the glitter in that galaxy. I thought that worked really well. Here I'm going to go in with my disposable micro applicator brushes. I love these things, and I'm going to tend to that blob a little bit more. I'm using my Distress ink in the black soot, and I'm just using my little applicator brush to add some color on top of that blob. It disappears quickly. You almost never know it was there. I even use that little applicator brush to turn that little blob into two different stars. I love those little applicator brushes. They will fix a myriad of little problems on your cards. I guess I needed a little bit more sparkle on this card. I will remember this technique when I'm putting some sparkle on a background. Just try flicking your sparkle pen. Look at the great glitter on that. Of course, I do want to take my heat tool and dry everything perfectly well, but I think this is about it. That's my process for making a galaxy background. That's the exact process I used for the card from the My Monthly Hero December kit. You can put Earths on these, you can put planets on these, you can put moons on these, you can use these galaxy backgrounds for a variety of purposes. I really love that Brusho pigment powder. I think it is worth every penny. It's not very expensive. Now, I don't have tons of colors of Brusho powder. I only have the black, but that black is so much fun to play with. You see that big moon works well up there. This is the From the Vault Earth stamp from Hero Arts that I got from Christmas. Either of those work well. We've got a great galaxy here. It works both in a portrait and in a landscape orientation. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned a little. I hope you rush out and buy a little bottle of Brusho pigment powder and give this a try for yourself. That's my card again. You can see I have a little bit more black in the center of that panel and a little bit more black around the edges of the panel. That's one of the great things about Brusho powder. You'll never get the exact same galaxy twice. That's for sure. I hope you enjoyed this. I will try to do more process videos in the new year of 2020. But thanks for joining me. Please like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. And remember, boldly go where no crafter has gone before. Happy crafting, folks.